Well, again, if you are new, you came at the very end of the movie. We are wrapping up our series on the book of James this morning. Pastor Tony did a great job the last 3 weeks covering for me. He actually did the last half of chapter 5. We're actually going to do the first half of chapter 5 this morning, so we're a little bit out of order, but hopefully you understand why we did so. So if you have your Bibles, turn with me to James chapter 5, starting in verse 1. We're going to read this through verse 11 this morning. Here's what James says. Now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you. Your wealth has rotted and moths have eaten your clothes. Your gold and silver are corroded. Their corrosion will testify against you and eat your flesh like fire. You have hoarded wealth in the last days. Look, the wages you failed to pay the workers who mowed your fields are crying out against you. I read that. I'm like, man, I should have memorized that for my dad when I was mowing his yard. That would have been good. The cries of the harvesters have reached the ears of the Lord Almighty. You have lived on earth in luxury and self-indulgence. You have fattened yourselves in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and murdered the innocent one who was not opposing you. Be patient then, brothers and sisters, until the Lord's coming. See how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. You too, be patient and stand firm, because the Lord's coming is near. Don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The judge is standing at the door. Brothers and sisters, as an example of patience in the face of suffering, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. As you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. You have heard of Job's perseverance and have seen what the Lord finally brought about. The Lord is full of compassion and mercy. So to kick things off this morning, I need a little help. You probably have all heard the phrase. You probably all have said the phrase. You just wait until blank. Now, how would you finish that line? You just wait until what? Your dad gets home. Okay, that's one way. What's another way to fill in that phrase? You just wait until you have kids, right? Then you'll know. Another way. That's it? That's all the ways that you guys can think of? You just wait until what? You just wait until you have to do it yourself, right? You're out on your own. Yeah, just wait until you have to pay the bills. And yeah, amen. Now those are, what was that? I don't know. I don't know. But those are mainly negative, right? Is there any positives? You just wait until tomorrow. That could be positive, maybe, depending on what tomorrow is. What's another one, positive one? Just wait until you're married. It's going to be so much better if you wait. I love that. Any others? You just wait until Christmas. I guess that's positive, depending on when Christmas is. Yeah, right? So here's my point in all this. I think you can say a phrase that can actually mean two different things to two groups of people. It could be the same phrase. For example, you just wait until your father gets home is what we all started with, right? Is that positive or negative? Negative. Depends on your dad, right, I guess. No, it's usually used in the negative connotation, but it actually could be positive. And I'll give you an example. When I was a kid, my dad was a fireman. And Christmas morning, we didn't always open gifts then because my dad was either working or maybe at a fire. And so sometimes we had to wait. And so all these, Christmas presents are under the tree. And it was like, when can we open them? And so hypothetically, my mom with two boys could have said to one boy who got in trouble that day, you just wait till your father comes home. And that is a completely negative connotation to it. But for me, who was just waiting, I'll make my brother the bad guy on that one. But But for me, who was waiting just for the gifts, and like this, my mom could have said, you just wait until your father comes home. And that was a good thing and a positive thing and something to hope for. And so you could take one phrase, two different groups of people, and actually have it mean completely different things. Now, that's what James is going to do for us today. He's actually going to give us like one phrase, and he's going to address two groups of people, but they're actually going to mean two very different things. So who are the groups of people? I break them down into two categories, the haves and the have-nots. Now, before we get the wrong idea, the haves, meaning if you have money, if you have wealth, just because you're a have doesn't mean like you're evil and God hates you and all that. And just because you're a have-not doesn't mean that you're innocent and pure and all that either. It's really actually nothing to do with money today in some ways, as far as who are the haves and who are the haves not. It's really what you do with your money and not money. And so money, if you think about it, has a way, it really affects the heart. This is why money is so powerful. Money, if you have money, it can produce a great sense of security and comfort, right? That's why we love money. That's why we like to have more of it, because we feel more secure and we feel more comfortable. And for those who don't have money, there's a feeling, a sense of insecurity and discomfort oftentimes, right? And so the question this morning, as we read about two groups, the question is, which one are you? Are you a have or are you a have not? And maybe you could be both. You could be both, and I'll explain that. But let's talk about the haves, right? Because James starts off with the haves, those who have money. Now, this is maybe one of the most troubling passages in all of the book of James, because it's just the severity of the language that James uses. So let me just read you the first part. He says, "Now listen, you rich people, weep and wail because of the misery that is coming on you." And it doesn't get any better from here, as we just heard. Like, he just rails against them. As almost, if you listen to it, it almost sounds like what you would read in the Old Testament. Like with the prophets railing against certain groups of people, and God's judgment is coming, and they're just like not holding back. They're like, you need to just weep and wail, and you have fattened yourselves for the day of slaughter. I mean, James just goes off on these people. But the question is, and this is where a lot of scholars debate, is who are these people? Who are the rich people? And there's really three different, options. One, these people are not in the church, they're not Christians, and James is simply talking about these people, actually two believers who are suffering at the hands of the rich people, but there's not actually these people in the church. That's one option. The second option, I think, is more probable, is that these are actually rich people in the church, because as James chapter 2 we already looked at, rich people were coming in. Rich people were becoming Christians. And it was tempting for people as leaders to treat those rich people with more favoritism, because we could see they have the gold rings and they have the robes and they have this, all those things that we think, oh, they could help us out. And so James says favoritism is wrong, but rich people were coming in. So these were actual Christians. And yet these Christians didn't really know maybe what to do with their money. And they were still using their money the way they used to use their money. And they had a blind spot with their money. And oftentimes in the Old Testament and on to the New, heroes of the faith often had a blind spot. And they made mistakes. Peter makes mistakes. Abraham made mistakes. Moses makes mistakes. David makes mistakes. And so maybe these are Christians. And this is not a salvation issue. This is just like, hey, like you are not, handling your money very well. Or, and this is the scariest of options, these were rich people in the church who, with their words, would say, yes, I'm following Jesus, but with their actions would prove otherwise. That they were just giving lip service to Jesus, but in their heart of hearts, they weren't following Jesus, they weren't trusting Jesus, they didn't have a relationship with Jesus. They just were saying that for one reason or another. And so we don't know who are these rich people specifically, but I think James is trying to do, whatever group we're talking about, I think he's trying to do the same thing. I think James is trying to take away comfort from those who were comfortable, right? Because wealth adds comfort, wealth adds security. And I think James is saying, listen, those of you who are so comfortable right now with all of your wealth, if this is how you're using your wealth, maybe that's evidence to suggest you shouldn't be as comfortable as you think you are. You shouldn't maybe feel so secure. If there's no good fruit coming out of your life, I wouldn't feel so comfortable if I were you. So he's trying to take their comfort away. Now, he's not necessarily saying you're not saved. I don't want you to hear that this morning, but he's just saying you may not should be as comfortable or secure maybe as you think, because you should weep and wail, he says. He says you need to repent, you need to turn, you need to change the course of what you do with your money. Now, what are the rich people doing with their money? Well, they're living well, they're living extravagantly, they're living an indulgent lifestyle, right? But specifically, James says they are hoarding their money. They're hoarding it. Now, any hoarders here? It's like, listen, here's where the Bible we got to be careful. The Bible actually, I think, distinguishes hoarding versus saving. Okay, there is a difference between hoarding and saving. In fact, the Bible actually, encourages us to save. Like the book of Proverbs, the author says, look at the ants. Look how the ant stores up and saves over the summer because it knows the winter's coming. And so saving is good, but hoarding it not so much. So here's the question. Where's the line between hoarding and saving? How many cars should I own at one time? How big of a house do we really need? How much money should I have in the bank? How much retirement is enough to feel secure and have, how much is enough? The problem is the Bible never tells us. And understandably so, right? Because the Bible was written for everybody of all times, and if it gave us a number, like $10,000, that might have been good in the 1920s or something. But $10,000 today, goes pretty quick anymore. And so the Bible actually never draws us a specific, here's the line between you're saving and you're actually hoarding. But that doesn't mean we can do whatever we want with our money now. What you do with your money still matters, even if there is no line for us to look at. In fact, James says, I'm not going to give you a line, I'm going to give you a test. I'm going to give you a test. And here's what he says about wealth, about the rich hoarding it. He says, your wealth has rotted and moths have eaten your clothes. He says, right here is a great test. So when do things begin to rot away? When you don't use it, right? When you don't use them. Now, I would say most of us probably don't have all of our wealth in our clothing, although some maybe, I don't know, some of you may have all of your, I don't know. But most of our wealth is stored somewhere in some server in a digital format with ones and zeros, and it just kind of continues to grow and continues to, incur interest. Like that's where most of our money goes. So it's not rotting that way. But here's the reality this morning. If your heart is tied into your wealth, eventually your heart will begin to rot away. It's not your clothes that's going to rot. It's your heart that's going to rot, right? And so we can allow our hearts to rot and we begin to mistreat our money by not using it correctly, by not using it for what God has given it for, right? And so not only does James rail against the rich people for mishandling their money, but also this idea of mistreating people in order to get more of that money. The question that I think James begs to ask is this, that are you using people for your wealth or using your wealth for people? And those are two very, very different things. Right? Now, I know none of us are landowners. I mean, like we own land, but not like the serfs and like we can't kick people off our land and all that. Most of us don't have that. But most of us are probably, some of us are owners, some of us are supervisors, some of us are managers, some of us, hire out contractors. And the question is, how do you treat them? Are you looking to squeeze every last, penny out of them and trying to get as much out of them as you possibly can and save as much as you can and hoard as much as you can? Are you looking at people the way God sees people as image bearers? Or are they just means to an end? Do you see them, like really see them, or do you overlook them? And do you undervalue them? And I'll give you just a really quick recent example of just like, oh my goodness. So we were in the DR, and every morning there's a staff that comes in and makes breakfast for us. And so they have to be there at 5. So I don't know what time they have to get up just to be there. And so they make breakfast, and then they make lunch, and they make dinner. So like 5 to 9 is their like normal work schedule. It's like long hours. Now, we were out one afternoon in these houses going around praying for people. And so we got to one house, and one of the translator leaders grabbed this lady, and he goes, you guys recognize her? And we're all like, no, should we? And I was like, I've been here for like 3 years. I'm like, have I seen her before? Like, nothing was coming. And he says, and I think he was hoping one of us would recognize her, and none of us did. And he says, she served you breakfast the other day. And I was like, oh, fail. Like, we just ate breakfast and went on our way. And here are these people serving us, and it's like, oh, I didn't see you. I didn't see you for you as a person. I saw you as a means to getting my breakfast and getting on with the day. But that's how we can treat people. And so this is the rich. This is what he was saying the rich do. The rich just use people to get more wealth. And so not only do they have a money problem, I think James is saying like they have a love problem. They don't love people well. They love their wealth more than people. Anybody feeling convicted at this moment? I did when I read this. I was like, oof. But James isn't done. James says those are the haves, but we got to get to the have-nots. The have-nots. What's his message to those who don't have, who are going maybe through times of suffering or discomfort or lack of peace? Here's his message. Be patient. Just wait. Now, we got to talk about patience here because in our culture, patience is about gone. We've run out of patience here in our culture. In every other culture before us, patience was seen as a high virtue and something to shoot for. In fact, I was reading this great book on patience in the first century Christian world. It was like the highest of virtues. If you think about all the virtues you could put on top, patience was actually number one back in the day. And the question is like, what happened? Well, technology happened, right? In fact, what company do we like to use the most these days? Amazon. Magical company. We'll get you this in a week's time back in the day. Wow, a week, that's not too bad. We'll get you this in a few days. Then they went to what? 2-day shipping. Then they went to today. I'm like, are you guys like magicians? Like, where is this stuff coming from? How is it getting here so fast? And then it's like just a couple hours. If you want to pay a couple more bucks, it's like, wow. And so all the technology and all this has just killed our ability to be patient, to wait. But this word patient that James uses, actually, there's 2 different words he uses for patience throughout this. But the first one, if you break it up and from the Greek, it goes long and anger. He just like takes 2 words and like he puts them together for this word for patience. It means that you are long in before you get angry. You are long in your suffering. You are long before you lose your stuff. Right? And he says, this is what we need to do. Be patient. And he says, let me give you an example. Maybe this will relate to you somehow. He uses an example of a farmer, and specifically a farmer in that first century world waiting for 2 things, the autumn rains and the spring rains. He says this in verse 8. He says, see how the farmer waits for the land to yield its valuable crop, patiently waiting for the autumn and spring rains. And that's so easy to read and kind of not understand exactly what he's talking about because we don't live in the first century and we're not farmers, most of us. But here's what he's saying. In that time, in that area, there were the autumn rains that would come, and they would soften the soil, and you would wait for the autumn rains before you planted because you could not plant in dry, hard soil. You had to wait for the autumn rains. But once the autumn rains came and you planted the soil, then you would start to see your crop begin to grow. And it would grow and it would grow and it would grow. But there was another season of rains that were hopefully coming, and those were the spring rains. And the spring rains were important because the spring rains would create like the fullness of the crop, the maturity of the crop, and you wanted to wait for that to get the most out of your harvest. But it was hard to wait because you're sitting there and you're waiting, and the dryness between autumn and spring, you're like, is it gonna rain? When is it gonna rain? And you don't wanna lose your crop, and you don't want it to burn out, and you're like, oh, should I do it? Should I not? Should I pull the trigger? Should I? And he's saying, it's just like that. Just like that is how we wait. Some of you are waiting for those spring rains to come. Some of you are waiting for the spring rain of marriage to come. When, oh Lord, are you gonna, bring somebody my way? I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. Some of you are waiting for the spring rains of a career or a job. You're just like, man, I gotta get out of this. God, when? Some of you had a prodigal son or daughter, and you've been waiting for them to return. You've been waiting for reconciliation. You've been waiting for them to wake up and realize just how far off the path. And you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting. And if we wait, James says, something good will come. But if we just take it on ourselves and pull that crop up early, we're going to miss what God has in store for us. He says the rains will come. Now the rains will come not always the way we want them to come, or what we'll produce is not always what we want. Because God never promises us a spouse. God never promises us a certain career. God never promises us a certain amount of money. But God does promise that if you wait and you wait, the rains in a sense will come and it will produce something in you. I think the author of Hebrews puts it so well. He says, no discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Waiting is painful. Suffering is, it's like discomfort, insecurity. That's hard to deal with. And you're waiting and you're waiting. He says this, later on, however, eventually it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. In other words, if you just wait for those spring rains, eventually it will come and it'll produce something in you that you didn't have before, characteristics that you didn't have before. This is what we talked about in week 1, very beginning of the series. Consider it joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face trials of many kinds. Why? Because those trials will produce in you something that you did not have before, like empathy or humility or even more patience. So we just wait. And that harvest of righteousness peace, those characteristics will eventually come. You will mature, you will grow. It will be not for naught. It'll produce in you something. Just wait. Maturity is coming. Hold on. Now this word for patience has to deal a lot with people. And so he goes on to talk about our relationship with people when it comes to waiting, because people are hard and people are insensitive and people are mean. And people are rude, and people are selfish. Not any of you. I'm just talking about other people, right? I mean, come on, like people are hard. What should you do? Well, he says, here's what you should not do, because I know you're gonna be tempted to do this. He says, don't grumble against one another, brothers and sisters, or you will be judged. The temptation for the haves is to misuse their money and misuse people with their money. But the temptation for the have-nots who are looking around going, I don't have it. I'm waiting. It is like they're treating me this, it's like the temptation is just to grumble and complain. Any complainers in the room? Anybody complain about other people? Work people, right? Now don't point fingers. We're not, but we do. And here's what this word grumble means. It means to sigh or to moan or to groan. It's actually a word that's used for women who are in childbirth and it's actually a more inward attitude of the heart. It's like, oh. It can look like a lot of different things. It can look like gossip or criticisms or just being negative about somebody. But here's a good cue that you're grumbling about somebody. When you hear that person's name or you see them, you inwardly go, do you have those people in your life? Don't bring them up. Pastor Dave. Ugh, so long-winded. Are we getting out of here anytime? Ugh. Ugh. Now, that's your cue. You're grumbling. Now, why is grumbling so bad to James? It's because grumbling is, in a way, you giving up on that person. You saying, I'm done. I'm washing my hands. I'm writing them off. I'm not going to be walking with them. They're not going to change. They're never going to change. They're always going to be that way. It's never going to get better. They're like, it's just like, you're just writing them off. And the reason that grumbling is so serious is because it's a failure on our part to love people. It's an absolute failure when we grumble because we're going, there's no hope for them. There's no hope for them. So the first word has to deal with people of patience. But the second word that James uses is a different word. And so the translators translate it different just to show us, but it actually just means a lot of the same thing. It's being patient, not with people, but in our circumstances. And here's the other word he uses. He says, persevere. He says, as you know, we count as blessed those who have persevered. Now, we looked at this word the first week. This word persevere actually means this idea of just, again, dealing with our circumstances in a way that we hyper stand in it. Like when circumstances get hard, we don't move. It's as if like a general tells this private, here's where you stand and here's where you will stay. Do not give the enemy an inch. You stay here. Follow these orders. You hyperstand. You do not change. You do not give in. You do not give up. That's what James is saying here. And he gives two illustrations of this. He says, one are these people called the prophets. And if you don't know what the word prophet is, it's just somebody who gets a message from God and then delivers that message to the people. And oftentimes these messages are not what people want to hear. It's my job sometimes, right? It's not always pleasant. An example of this is a guy named Jeremiah. Jeremiah lived in a time where King Nebuchadnezzar of the Babylonians was the superpower of the day. And God was using King Nebuchadnezzar to basically judge the people of Israel for their lack of obedience. And so Jeremiah's got this message from God saying, hey, times are going to get tough. I don't want you to get married. Don't want you to have kids. And I want you to go to the leadership. And I want you to tell them, when King Nebuchadnezzar comes, lay down your arms. Don't fight. Don't resist. Just give in to the enemy. And does that sound something like you would want to hear as the leadership of your country? No way. No way. What do you mean, just lay down and surrender? You're going to tell all the people to surrender? No way. And so, of course, they hate him for that. And then he goes on to say this, and when they take you to Babylon, I want you to work and pray for the peace of the city. What? You want us to work and pray for our enemy in the city that has, captured us? Yes. It's like, Jeremiah, which side are you on? Whose team are you on? And so Jeremiah was beaten and he was, it was just a hard row, right? It was just tough for Jeremiah. But he says, listen, look at his life. Look at the prophets. Then he says, Job is another example. Look how Job hyperstood in his circumstances. One day, his kids were taken away, his wealth was taken away, and his health was taken away, all in one day. And Job persevered. Now, did Job persevere quietly? No. To hyperstand does not mean you have to be a stoic soldier with no emotion and not say anything. Jeremiah, Isaiah, Job, all these guys cried out to God, saying, God, this is horrible. I hate this. How long? Like, what is going on? Why are you doing this? What did I, all these questions and all this emotion coming out. And yet, in all of that, they stood in the circumstance, not trying to find the easiest way out, but they held on. They persevered. And so what is James trying to tell the have-nots who are uncomfortable, who are insecure, who are suffering? I think he's trying to give them comfort. I think he's trying to give comfort to the uncomfortable. I think he's trying to say, just wait, hold on. In fact, what's the message? What's the answer to both those who are struggling with materialism and those who are struggling with suffering and pain and waiting? What's his answer? You just wait. Wait for what, James? You just wait until my brother gets there. See, James had this incredible eschatology. That means just a view of the last times. And he really believed that his brother was coming back. In fact, we looked at the first week when James, the real person James, was set on the precipice of the temple and was going to be thrown off unless he tells everybody else to stop following Jesus, and he doesn't do it. And remember what he says? He says, you just wait till my brother gets back. He's going to set everything right. You see, when Jesus comes back, this is our hope as Christ followers. He is going to bring two things: judgment and mercy. He is going to judge the world, and he's going to bring his justice, and he's going to make everything right. But he also, as James says, is a Lord of mercy and compassion, and he's bringing mercy with him. So the question is, who's going to get what? Who's going to get the judgment, and who's going to get the mercy? And the answer are the haves and the have-nots. But again, it has nothing to do with what? Money. It has nothing to do with money. Whether you have a lot or a little, judgment, mercy, it is not about money. It has everything to do with, do you have Jesus? What did you do with Jesus? You see, the rich, the haves, here's what James says. You have condemned and murdered, and I love how the innocent one. Not innocent ones, but what did you do to the innocent one? I think he's pointing back to Jesus, who was not opposing you. What did you do with him? And that is going to be the question that God will be asking you someday. What did you do with my son? Did you receive him, or did you reject him? Were you part of the crowd who ended up, murdering and just, we don't want anything to do with you? Or did you take him in? Are you a have or have not when it comes to Jesus? Or another way of saying is, do you have Jesus? Do you have Jesus? But I think there's even a better question than that, a more clarifying question. When it comes to your faith, does Jesus have you? See, for some of us, and I think this was the rich in the church, some people had Jesus in their back pocket. I got Jesus. I said yes. Yes, I do. I have Jesus. How about you, right? I got Jesus. But they were living so differently. It was like, you might have Jesus, but does Jesus have you? Have you surrendered your life to Jesus? Well, how can I tell? How do I know? What's the evidence? Glad you asked. James would say, well, look at two things. Look at how you're handling your wealth, and look how you're handling your waiting. Have you given your wealth to Jesus? Is he in charge of how you use it and what you do with it? And how have you handled the waiting game? Have you surrendered the pain? Have you surrendered the suffering? Have you surrendered to waiting till he does what he's going to do? That's a great indication, James says, of whether or not that you just have Jesus, but Jesus has you. Have you surrendered your whole life? See, this whole book of James is about integrating our whole life. We cannot say yes to Jesus over here, but say, you know what, Jesus, my wealth, my worries, my time, that's all me. That's all mine. I'm going to do it the way I want to do it. It's all or nothing. Jesus says, who has your heart? Have you given that to me or not? And giving doesn't get you to heaven, but man, giving and sacrifice and loving people well, that's just fruit of an indication of a heart that's been changed and handed over to Jesus. I can't help but think of Larry when I was writing this down in the DR. Larry, I've got to know Larry the last few years. Larry Sounds like an old man. He's not. He's a young man. Just an old-fashioned name. But Larry grew up through the Cups ministry. Like he was like generation zero. And they would tell stories how Larry and Brian and other guys were just so hard to deal with, but yet now they've gone through the Cups and now they're mature young men. Larry's married. He's got 2 kids. It's just beautiful to see. And one afternoon, we actually got to visit Larry's house. We were unannounced surprise on Larry, but he was so cool. Like we came over to his house and I got to see his house, and it was actually just a stone's throw away from the center where he kind of grew up. And so he was taught how to bake, and he was taught how to, start a micro business and made a little bit of money. And I was so surprised, because oftentimes when I hear stories about people in poverty, as soon as they have the opportunity to get out, they want to get out and never go back. But when Larry had a chance to take a little bit of money and do something with it, he ended up just buying a house a stone's throw away from the center. And there, he's using his house for ministry and for hospitality. He didn't run away from his poverty. He says, I'm going to reinvest my life into the kingdom's work that got me to where I'm at. And so he looked at his wealth and said, God, it's yours. What do you want me to do with it? But I also looked at Larry's house, and again, very, very small house. And I noticed there was a line of bricks, an outline on the next to his house. And I was like, what is that all about? He says, well, I want 5 kids. They have 2. I said, I'm sorry for your wife. But no, he's like, no, it's great. And so, but our house is so small. And so I said, well, he's like, this is to add on. I'm building on. But I'm like, there's not, he's like, well, it's just, as I'm able to buy the bricks, I'm able to put the wall around. I'm like, man, that takes incredible patience. For us, it's like, well, where do we sign on the dotted line to get a loan and, whatever to get this done? But he's like, it'll come. And he was so patient. I just think of Larry, of what he did with his money and what he did with his waiting. And I'm like, oh, good job, Larry. What are you doing? Where's your money going? How's it being used? What are you doing in the waiting? Are you grumbling, complaining? Or are you going, God, I'm going to hyperstand until you tell me otherwise. I'm not giving in and I'm not giving up. James says that's an integrated life. Here's a picture, by the way, we took when we were praying for Larry's house. That's Larry. That's the only shot I took because I was trying to be sensitive to the moment, but that's pretty cool. Larry's heart. I hope more of our hearts are like that. I hope my heart is like that. I hope I'm open-handed and patiently waiting for God to move. I hope you enjoyed our series. It's an incredible book. Can't wait for next week, but that'll be next week. I gotta spoil it. No spoilers. Just come back next week. It'll be good. But can I pray for us? Jesus, I don't know everyone in this room. I don't know where their heart's at. I don't know if they've ever said yes to you. I don't know if they have you, or even more importantly, you have them. But to me, the most secure we can ever be is in your hands. All of us and all of you, including our money, including our worries, including our time, our schedules, all of us and all of you. And when we are in you, we can rest assured that you will never leave us or forsake us, and nothing can remove us from your hand. So God, I pray for those who have yet to say yes to surrendering their life to you. Maybe today is their day. You've been working on their heart. They know it. And maybe now they're willing to take that step and say, yes, Lord, I'm all yours. Have your way with me. God, thank you for the generosity of our church. Thank you for those who give so sacrificially so that we can go down and support great organizations like Cups Ministry. I pray that that continues, that partnership continues for decades and decades to come. But it takes faithful people, generous people, sacrificial people to do that. People who've been changed by the love of Jesus. Jesus, we love you and we pray all this in your precious name. Amen.
Church, please stand as we continue to worship. As the Spirit